Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, I do have a Kickstarter going on right now, Beast and Snow. It's a not safe for work romance queer story about Snow White and Beauty and the Beast. So there's a vampire version of Snow White, and there might be some werewolves in the Beauty and Beast side of the story. So hopefully guys could go check that out. It's been live for day and almost has 1,000 backers. We are really happy with this campaign. Now, also at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week. So in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week. So at the end of the video, we will feature that comment and you have a chance to be on the episode. Now let's jump into this week's comics. I had 9 books, so pretty average sized haul. And number 9 for me is Fence Redemption, issue 3. I have not loved this volume as much as the previous ones. I do feel like they've been really trying to squeeze a lot of characters in here. Maybe because there is a little less room than an ongoing series or a graphic novel like its previous installments of this book. It is a mini series. So I just wish there was a little bit more room for the main characters. Obviously, you get to see a little bit of the story with them, and I like the beginning of this issue a lot because you got to see more of the fencing. But then we got into backstories, and 10 other characters showed up. So I don't know if I'm going to continue this one. I lost my way with it, but I do like the art, and I do think it's still a fun overall series. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8, a book I'm surprised that is so low, and that is The Adventures of Superman John Kent issue 6. I really like this series, but I feel like it really rushed its ending here, and it's actually the title of my video where John Kent defeats the whole Justice League in one issue, and I was kind of surprised by that happening, honestly. I think maybe if they focused just on John talking to Superman, that would have been a little bit more of an organic conversation, but a lot of conversations felt forced, and him defeating the Justice League in the way he did, I feel like could have been stronger. I wish there was maybe more people on his team. It didn't flow right for me for this one. And also, we're not going to be seeing John Kent for a little while, at least in his own type of story, it seems like. It's going to be connected to Titans and that Beast World arc that's coming up in November. So I'm also curious to see what is the next chapter of his journey here, because we got to see him interact with the Injustice team. How does that affect his day-to-day life and the journey of the overall character? I did like the artwork a lot for this one, though, and I kind of saw where it was coming, but I did like those previous issues a bit more, and I don't know if this issue stuck the landing for the full mini. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is the Amazing Spider-Man Annual Issue 1. If you've been enjoying The Amazing Spider-Man, you will enjoy this, but if you're kind of in the camp like me that has not been loving the arcs currently for Amazing Spider-Man, I don't know if this will convince you. The first one has a lot to do with Hallows' Eve character and the Dark Web storyline, so, I dropped Hallows' Eve with issue 1. I did hear people enjoying that, but I couldn't really jump on board, and I didn't really like the Dark Web stuff, so that's just a continuation of that. And then the second part is Mary Jane focus, which I like, but it goes all the way back to last year's Hellfire Gala where Aunt Annie, or Aunt Anna. Anna. I think it's Annie. Or maybe it's both. Anna, I think. But her aunt, we get to see, had dementia. She takes these pills that are from Krakoa. And then now she's kind of going crazy. And Mary Jane has to figure it out and team up with Paul, of all people, and Spider-Man. And it seems like that's going to continue somewhere else. And I didn't really care for that storyline because it was a year ago and we didn't really see much from it. But I like the artwork for both stories, and I think that's why it's a bit higher than those previous books. So giving that 2.5 stars, and then it's number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is What If Dark Venom issue 1. I've been really liking these What If issues. I really love the Gwen Stacy book. And this one was pretty solid as well. If you like the Thing and you enjoy the arc of, hey, I'm the monster and these are my internal feelings about that. It's heightened, obviously, because of the Venom. And there's, some shocking moments of Reed and Sue dying. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. And then, obviously, in the end, things kind of taken over by the Venom and the idea that he could look like his human self again. Is there any uncharted territory here? No, and I do think there's times where the dialogue does feel a bit bogged down, but the artwork is pretty solid and it's still a fun concept overall, especially if you like the Fantastic Four. So overall, giving that 3 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is just Society of America issue 5, we're actually up to. It tends not to be released monthly, but I still enjoy it. If you've been enjoying Jeff Johns' side of the DC universe, it really does connect really all his series. We get to see a connection to the Watchmen series had, the Doomsday Clock, obviously this series, and then even his Stargirl miniseries is referenced here. And we get a little bit of plot progression of, okay, what's Huntress's role in this world where she's from, an Elseworld, where her dad died, and obviously there's a lot of time travel involved. So we get to see some pieces moved. I don't know if there's a lot of revelations here, but I love the art. I still love the voice of Helena in this book. And overall, I'm having a fun time with it. And I like that things feel a bit connected. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. All right, moving on to number 4, which is Steelworks, issue 3. I did get that foil cover. I think DC honestly does a really good job with their foil covers. This one I'm also just kind of having a fun time with. It's Steel kind of finding his place in the super family when the super family is really big. And we get to see what his connection is with Superman and how he's celebrating Superman in this issue. And then in the end, the cliffhanger is that Lois gets her powers, Lana gets her powers again. And I loved Lana as Superwoman. I think that was one of the better arcs of the New 52, so I'm glad that's coming full circle, and we'll see where that story takes us and where that takes Steel and John and Lana's story as a couple. And the artwork is really, really solid for this, very clean and sharp action. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, a book I kind of got on whim, and that's The Sacrificers issue 1. It was on my most anticipated list as well, just because it felt like a very different series. It's about these 2 kids who are abandoned by their family and what their story is. And I'll say the girl's story I couldn't connect to as much. I feel like it was maybe a little bit too heightened, but there was a really good emotional core with the boy's story where we get to see his family treat him really badly because the government's going to take him away. And there's some really good emotional beats in the beginning here. Honestly, just a really cool start to this book that I really don't know where it's going, but in a fun way, honestly. And you get that emotional core that's really needed in a first issue. Be like, oh, I'm interested in that second issue. And also progressing the plot, because obviously this government kind of has a bigger story and you want to see why these 2 characters are connected. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars. And if you like animal driven stories, I think the artwork is drawn well for that and still human like with the emotions. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Peacemaker Tries Hard, issue 4. I've been talking a lot about this book because I love it and I continue to love it. It's a really funny book, and this one doesn't disappoint. It's Peacemaker joined by these 2 F-listers, villains, and him trying to find his dog, and he tries to get Amanda Waller's help, really tries tricking her and saying, hey, Bruce Wayne's in trouble. It's like, Bruce Wayne's in trouble? It's like, not that Bruce Wayne. So they're like, those moments I think really shine here. The action is really, really good for this book as well. And it's just kind of this kooky side of the DC universe that doesn't have to be connected to anything and is character driven, comedy driven, emotionally driven, really solid book, like I said. Giving that 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, I think you guys are going to be surprised by this one because I usually don't read this book, and I just jumped on again, and that is X-Men issue 25. The reason I jumped on, if you guys watched this show for a long time, you might know I'm a really big Kitty Pryde fan. Now returning to the X-Men and having a bigger role, and she's changing her name. So I was like, all right, let's see what this is going to be all about. And it really was very Kitty driven for the most part. And that's what really brought this to my pick of the week. I thought Kitty was really well written, which I'm not surprised by because Jerry Dugan did write Kitty for a long time with the Marauders, and I enjoyed that series. And I like the emotional pull that we get to see with Kitty because she can't go through the portals, or at least from the beginning. And there's this really good opener that grabs you just to kind of get into Kitty's psyche. And now she's kind of on the outskirts. She is definitely playing a shadowy figure. And there's some really good action scenes which reminds you that Kitty is a really, really good fighter and a good martial artist. And I think if you don't know as much about Kitty's character, you might have forgotten that aspect of her characters and really tying into her origin of the martial arts with the Ogun story that was from Wolverine and Kitty Pryde. So I loved her stuff. The Miss Marvel stuff I'm still a little debating on, but at least they tried doing something here with her and her family. But I kind of wish they introduced her in the X-Men after her miniseries so we could get her personal voice on things, but I'm sure you just kind of had to stick this in because, hey, that's kind of the big event that's going on in Marvel right now. But I thought the artwork was really dark. The action, like I said, was so good for Kitty and really inventive with her use of her powers. So overall, I thought this was a really solid issue, which is why it's my pick of the week. Let me know in the comments below what are your favorite books of the week. And last week's pick of the week was Superman, Lex Luthor's Last Days, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.